Faerie.
Lights out. This happened to me when I was 10 years old. I was sleeping over at my friend's house and we were watching all the Disney classics. We were eating a bunch of junk food and having a grand old time. I remember we had all the lights off in the den while watching Aladdin. It was the second movie we were watching and we were dancing and singing along to some of the songs. By the time we were on our fourth movie, Mulan, we were getting sleepy and tired. I remember Marie's mom coming in to give us blankets and flashlights. She told us don't forget to turn off the TV before going to sleep. We said yes and we continued to watch the movie. Halfway into the movie, Marie fell asleep, but I was still awake. I was determined not to doze off because this was one of my favorite movies at the time. When the movie finally ended, I got up from my sleeping bag to go turn off the TV. I got up with my flashlight at hand and walked towards the TV. When I turned it off, I forgot to turn on my flashlight, so I was struggling for a bit. I was having a hard time finding the button on the flashlight, and since I couldn't see, it made it even more difficult. When I found the button, I heard a voice. "Keep the light off." I was confused. I thought Marie had fallen asleep. I whispered, "Marie, is that you?" The voice said, "No, it's not Marie." I heard footsteps approaching. My 10-year-old self was shaking at that point, terrified. If it wasn't Marie, then who was it? I felt the flashlight shaking in my hand and I remembered it. I searched for the button again and my flashlight was flickering. I banged on the flashlight to try to get it to stop flickering. I heard the footsteps come closer and closer. "I told you to turn off the light," the voice said angrily. I screamed and Marie woke up, and that is when my flashlight came on, and I saw a lady in white right in front of me before my light went out. Marie and I both screamed again. That is when the entire lights were turned on. I turned around and saw Marie's parents. They ran to me and told me what was wrong. Marie was crying and we told them that we saw a lady in white. That was the scariest sleepover I had ever been to. Sightings. This happened a few years ago during the summer. My husband George and I had gotten off of the plane and we were waiting to get our luggage from the designated area. It was 1 a.m. and we were debating on whether to stay in the airport or drive back home. We decided to drive back home because we weren't tired. We had fallen asleep on the airplane ride, so we were ready for the ride back home. By the time we got our luggage and went to the car in the parking lot, it was about 3 a.m. The drive back home was about 4 hours away. We were on our second pit stop where we stopped at a gas station that was in the middle of nowhere. I do not remember this gas station from when we were first going to the airport for our trip. George didn't remember it either. We stopped there anyways and went inside to go to the bathroom and get some snacks. The gas station looked old and run down. It seemed like it hadn't been used in years, but the sign on the door said opened. My husband was having second thoughts about stopping here because he told me to go back into the car to wait for him while he went to go look for the cashier. I did not want to leave him alone in there because I also got a feeling this place was not right. George told me to stay close behind and stick together. We walked past the snack aisle and we could see the cashier table at the front. When we were walking towards it, all of a sudden we heard something fall behind us. I jumped and George said, "Who's there?" We heard a little kid's voice. The voice was laughing. George walked towards the voice. There was a pack of cookies on the ground, but no one was there. We ended up walking around the aisles to look for the little kid, but we found nothing. The store floor was filled with leaves, old food, twigs, and dirt. I told George that we should go. He agreed. We were making our way to the door when the lights went out and something fell again. My heart started racing. I reached for George's hand, but when I grabbed his hand, it wasn't his. I felt a little small hand like the size of a kid's hand. I yelled. The lights went back on and George was gone. I yelled, "George," but he wasn't answering. I started running through each aisle. I was filled with fear and tears, and I was about to go outside to look for him when I heard my name, Tracy. I heard my name coming from the aisle where the cookies had fallen. I was running to the aisle calling for George. I heard my name again. When I got there, I froze in terror. I saw a little boy filled with dirt and walking on all fours. He was at first at the far end of the aisle. The lights started to flicker, and I couldn't move. As the little boy approached me, his face started to get distorted. His eyes were turning all white, and blood was falling from his mouth. I felt a hand touch my back. I almost fainted with fear. I turned around and it was George. He said, "Come on." He grabbed my hand. The lights went out, but we could still see the streetlight coming from outside. We made it past the door and ran to the car. I noticed George was limping. He told me to drive and he gave me the keys. We got in the car and we sped off. When we were at a good distance away from that place, I stopped the car. I asked George what happened and why he was limping. He told me that when the lights went out, he got dragged inside one of the doors where the sodas are placed. He said he was yelling through the glass door to me, but that I couldn't hear him. It wasn't until he saw a beast approach me that the door opened. He said that the beast was ready to attack me. I told him, "What beast?" What I saw was a little boy.